warm welcome to all our viewers today. We are very happy to have with us today Mr. Aditya Maheswaran. Aditya is a speaker, coach, and consultant who enables businesses and people realize and unleash their potential. Aditya works in a global management consultancy and specializes in leadership development, executive and team coaching, and talent management. He's a TEDx speaker and is an MBA from the Indian School of Business, Hyderabad. In 2015, he became the first Indian representing India to bag the first runner-up at the World Championship of Public Speaking held at Las Vegas, from over 40,000 public speakers who competed from across the world. He has coached numerous professional speakers and business leaders and their teams to maximize productivity and potential. He constantly writes on his popular page, www.facebook.com/Aditya Speaks. So we're very happy to have you with us today. And I'm sure there's a lot for our readers and viewers to learn from your experiences. And we would like to give you a hearty congratulations for your being runner-up at the International Public Speaking event held at Las Vegas.
Thank you, Deepika. It's my pleasure to be with you here today as well.
We all read quotations about leadership. We all read biographies of great leaders, aspire and inspire, get inspired from great leaders of the present and the past.
Yeah.
But leadership, it does what? Some secrets about leadership. Let's learn it from Mr. Aditya Maheswaran. So everybody talks about leadership. What would be your definition of becoming and being a leader?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of defining abstract words, because the moment you define something like leadership, you're putting it into boundaries, and then the people who follow your definition are restricted by the boundaries of your own definition. And it's like defining love. It's very personal. What the feeling of love that I have is very different from the feeling of love you may have. The moment I define it, I reduce it to something like affection, care, which are all composition of love, but they're not love itself. Very similar is leadership. Some people call it influencing others, but then you're an influencer, not a leader. Some people call it communication, then you're just a speaker, you're not a leader. So, however, in my own experience, I can tell you some of the key aspects of leadership that I have learned to be very important in my journey as a leader, and which for me personally could be a definition of leadership. You see, I forayed into leadership. I was lucky to foray into leadership very early in life. When I was 21, I became the president of a Chennai Toastmasters Club, which was an organization I was part of as a passion to learn public speaking at that time. And this was a forum which had over 60 to 70 members, and I had to lead the pack. The average age of that club was around 45, 50 years, and I was here 21 and the president of that club. There used to be, everything went smoothly, but there used to be some of these arguments between some of these 40, 50-year-olds, and it used to come to me to make a decision or to talk sense into some people. And here I was, probably the age of their son, children. One thing I learned at that time is that when you do not have influence because of position or age or credibility or gray hair, one thing that's very, very useful for a leader is to be a subject matter expert. So instead of trying to influence them through begging or through asking, what I did was I went and made myself a expert in the rules, the bylaws of Toastmasters, the rules of what the situation demanded. So every time there used to be a problem that escalated to me, I would rather go into the bylaws of Toastmasters, rule number 5, rather than try to argue with these older people. So that was my first foray into leadership, and I still follow that. Being a subject matter expert helps you to command respect, helps you to see things from a neutral point of view rather than bringing your own biases into the system. As I grew up and as I took up more larger leadership roles, I realized that a very important part of leadership is not to tell people what to do, or to create an eager want in others. You see, when I have a higher purpose, or I have a big picture, I have a vested interest because I'm, say, the owner of the company, or I'm a senior manager, why would they have an equal interest as me in the same task or project? Of course, I have the interest because it benefits me, because I probably get a fat bonus if I complete that project, or it's my social venture. But then what benefit do they get? So unless I'm able to create an eager want in my people, that's what I call the process of intentional change. How are you able to make them change intentionally by their own regard, where they feel, hey, I need to do something differently for the company, for myself? And that is something which is very, very important for a leader. And I think that's what really differentiates a leader from a manager. A manager is one who manages tasks. A leader is someone who manages people. And when you manage people, it's not just about telling them what to do, but creating that eager want from them. I also have realized over time that this entire age of one big leader standing up and commanding respect is over. As we say, the age of alpha males is over. Leaders are no more the people who are going to be in the front of the organization, known to be the face of the organization, like, say, Henry Ford, or even a Steve Jobs, Mahatma Gandhi. These people have been alpha males, right? The entire freedom struggle is known as reflected in Gandhi's works. The entire rise of automobile industry is reflected in Henry Ford, or devices for Steve Jobs. I think going forward with the information age, with thought leadership in different levels in the organization, leadership is going to be more subtle. It's more relationship based. Some of the best leaders are going to go unnoticed to the outside world, but they're going to change lives of people that they interact with inside the organization. So leadership is about building these relationships, having that empathy, a sense of making other people successful for me to be successful. And these are the traits of leadership, I think, that's going to be very, very important in the 21st century leadership, rather than stand on top and say, I'm an alpha male, I lead the organization. Because gaining respect from employees is tougher than ever before. My father worked in a public sector organization for 25 years. Whenever the boss walked in, he had to stand up and say, sir, good afternoon, probably. Right? I probably never do that. And probably my next generation are going to just be playing Candy Crush as their boss walks in. Because it's not that they're disrespecting me. It's just the culture changes. It's their way of life. So if they're not going to stand up and give me a salute and or just say good morning, sir, what happens to my ego, right? And I cannot see myself as a person who's not respected in the organization. And that's exactly why leadership is not demanding respect or getting loyalty like it used to be in the past. It's about maintaining relationships, understanding others, thinking from the other person's point of view, taking quick, well-informed decisions, collaborating, being participative in approach. I think these are tenets of a good leadership. So if you ask me to define it, I would say being good, a subject matter in what you are, subject matter expert in what you are, having a large appetite to learn, creating that eager want in others, and making leadership a relationship-based process rather than a task-based process. These are tenets of a good leader.
That's a lot to learn from these tenets, and some of those interesting anecdotes from your life. I'm sure there's a lot to learn from what you have spoken. Now, as a civilization, we are driven more towards tangible and materialistic benefits. Why should I aim at being a leader? And what is it that I will achieve?
Yeah, there's this very popular myth, and I would rather blame all these 20th century management books, and leadership is a very used and abused word in our terminology. I am completely against this the view in this question that leadership is a destination we must reach. I don't think leadership is a destination. I think leadership is to just unravel what's already inside you, right? Finishing your engineering is a destination. Learning, being very proficient in guitar is a destination. But leadership isn't a destination because it's something that is already in you, which are just tapped by proper feedback, mentoring, and circumstances, right? Nobody who has gone set out to learn leadership ever has become a better leader. But people who have set out in their own internal journey to realize their potential, realize their own internal excellence, they have become better leaders. So leadership is not an extra burden that you choose or do not choose. Leadership is something that you already have. We're all leaders, just some of us have tapped that side of us and some of us have not. Because what is leadership? It starts with self-leadership, right? It starts with discipline. When you're more disciplined in your own life, leave the other stakeholders that you interact with or influence. When you're more disciplined in your own life, you feel that sense of joy. And when you go to office, that sense of joy spreads at office. You're more calm and balanced in thinking because you're not waking up at 9:30, dressing up for 5 minutes and getting to office, a lot of noise, having breakfast on the way, and your decision making cannot be balanced and calm if you do that. So leadership starts with self. It starts with discipline, and then it exudes. It's across the organization. People see you as a more calm and balanced and composed person. People want to come to you for advice and mentoring, and this is irrespective of whether you're a new person or a senior person in the organization. And therefore, building discipline in your life, building a sense of balance in your life, having a philosophical mindset in your life. And philosophy has got nothing to do with spirituality or religion. It's having the ability to inquire, not externally but internally. These are tenets of a calm and balanced mind, and that naturally creates that leader in you, and it's not something that you need to chase after. So I would just say leadership is a natural state. Some of us have been lucky to tap that natural state, and some of us are yet to do that. But all of you can become good leaders if you have that philosophical bent to leadership rather than just the tactical bent to leadership as propagated in these management books.
Right. Now, what are some of the things that no one talks about leadership?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I already covered a little in the last question that what nobody talks about leadership is the principles, the mind behind leadership. A lot has been said about the 5 things a leader should do or 5 styles a leader should have. But leadership is like a mirage. There is no real destination, as I said, right? But another thing that's never normally discussed is that there is no right or wrong way to be a leader. Because if these things are discussed openly and people understand it, then none of these books on leadership are going to be sold. But it's very important and interesting to understand that is it the journey or the destination, right? Are you focusing on 4 things you should do as a leader, or are you focusing on the effect or consequence you want to drive as a result of leadership? If you want to drive the bigger picture, the end goal, then you realize that there is no right or wrong way to be a leader. A leader is a person who gets things done at the end of the day. For example, I hate this debate that goes on about whether Steve Jobs is a good leader or Steve Jobs is a bad leader. But these are gossip that we get into. The point is, he embraced his own unique nature of leadership, and he had his own way. There were flaws, there were great things about him, but he was effective. Gandhi had his own unique way to approach people leadership. Henry Ford has his own unique way to approach leadership. No leader is completely fitting your definition of leadership. That does not mean that leader is a bad leader, right? They're very, very, very effective. I know some of the most inspiring leaders are people I even met during the recent Chennai floods. These are ordinary. This could be ordinary college students like you watching this video, or it could be big professionals who left their work to help people in relief. It was a situation that had ambiguity written all over it. Nobody knew where the floods happened, which areas were most hit. Nobody knew how deep the water was. Nobody knew how many people were captives inside their houses. People wanted to donate, but they didn't know how to donate, what to donate, where to donate, and how to reach these places. In this ambiguity, there were few people who rose up and connected demand and supply, um, integrated many different helping groups into few bigger helping groups, and really made a difference, even before the government could enter and make a difference. Now, these people are, according to me, leaders. They might not have done those 7 rules of leadership that you might read in your book, but leaders are people who are effective in the end, right? And therefore, one thing that's not normally talked about leadership is that truly there is no one way or the right way or the highway to be a leader. It's really what the situation demands of you, and it's really about embracing what your natural preferences and traits are.
Would you like to share an interesting and inspiring story from your experiences about leadership?
Oh yeah, there is there are so many stories that I can share. One thing that comes to my mind, in fact, 2 things, because you mentioned in the introduction about the World Championship of Public Speaking, right? The day before the World Championship of Public Speaking, from 40,000 speakers from across the world, over 100 countries, we had crossed through process of elimination through various rounds, and I'd reached the final 10 from the world. 6 Americans, couple of Asians. I was the only Indian, and it was the next day was the big day. 3,000 people live in front of you at Las Vegas. 30,000 people watching it live over web streaming. And the previous night, I had my speech ready. I knew what I was going to speak about. I had a gist in mind, but I really wanted to go practice. And there were past world champions who were there at the conference, and normally people would run to these past world champions because since they are past world champions, they give advices, they tell you what to tweak, what to change. But somehow I didn't feel right to go to them and seek advice. I mean, I was stupid. I could have gone. I rather went to another person who had come from India to Las Vegas. This person himself might not, I don't think he would have, he's ever competed in a speech contest. I don't think he would ever aspire to be a world champion himself. But I wanted to be with that person. I wanted to I knocked at his room and he opened the door and I said, I want to rehearse my speech in front of you. And he said, are you stupid? You should go to a world champion. I said, it's not about improving my public speaking skills. It's the night before the world championship. I can't improve my skills now. I'm already good. That's why I'm here. The point is there's something about you that makes me want to be with you and practice my speech in front of you. You don't need to give feedback. You don't need to tell me anything. Just sit down and listen to my speech and I'll walk out of the door after my speech. And that's what I did. I practiced my speech for a couple of times in front of that person. He did not add any value to the speech as such, but he just listened and said, it's a good speech, all the best. And I felt so empowered and as if I'm ready for the world championship, right? That's the power of a leader. That's because of the respect and credibility I have about that person. And sometimes all that is required of you is just to be there. You don't need to add value. You don't need to have the pressure of being better than your subordinates or better than your employees. I probably was a better speaker than that person. But just that being in the environment of that person boosts my energy. So that I correlate to what effective leaders can do. Sometimes leaders in organizations try to do everything themselves because they know that as a leader they have to be role models or they know to do the work better, so they do it. They've been high performers in the past. But sometimes all that your team needs is just your physical presence to be there to motivate them, and they would figure out a way themselves. So that's something I fondly remember. The second anecdote I remember is my speech in the World Championship Finals was called the Scratch. It's about how my new car gets scratched, and in the process of polishing the scratch, I end up scratching a lot of emotional scratches, causing a lot of emotional scratches on people, and how I go about polishing those emotional scratches. That was the core of my speech. After I came back to India 2 weeks after the World Championship, I received thousands of these social media messages and emails and messages, and one or two emails still are stuck in my head. One was from this lady, I think from France, from Europe definitely, who wrote me a mail saying that, Aditya, my brother and I have not been talking for the last 6 years. In fact, even when our father died, we met at the funeral, but we did not exchange words. I listened to your speech, the final speech called the Scratch, where you talked about how these emotional scratches, you can keep making it stay, but then a scratch stays as long as you don't polish it. So I decided to polish the scratch, and I called up my brother. He came home after 6 years, and we spoke for 5 hours continuously. And why we didn't talk for 6 hours, I will never know. Thank you, Aditya, for giving us that speech and changing my life for the good. I was very touched by this email because I realized that if you're able to truly change lives, if you're able to truly influence people for the good, you are a leader. You see, on stage, I was alone. I did not have 5 people as a team. I did not have a project management tool. I did not have anything. I was just able to convey my thoughts as pure as it was to the other person, and ended up creating an impact. And it reaffirmed my belief that communication, public speaking, articulation is such a vital core part of leadership, because when you're able to articulate your point of view, you're able to inspire people. And it's only when you inspire people that they would work on their own accord, and not just because you have told them to do something, right? And that lady probably just required a small trigger to reestablish contact with her brother after 6 years. And probably she had not got the trigger for 6 years, and a 7-minute speech had provided her the trigger. Imagine how many triggers you can give to people across the world, across your community, across your neighborhood, by being that, unleashing that leader and unleashing that potential in you. So these are few anecdotes that have that stay in my mind, that also happened recently to me, which goes on to show that leadership is not something doing different things or jumping up and down. It's about creating that brand for yourself. It's about being honest and truthful about yourself, and it's about building skills like articulation to ensure that you're able to do a better job at it.
These are some of the very inspiring anecdotes that you have shared with us. Now, we all now know that defining our purpose in life and being a leader is of huge importance. But does it help me to have a better career? If yes, then how?
You see, the problem which many of the technology companies face now is that most of their people who are now senior managers or directors, who are in the upper mid-management cadre, are people who grew up very fast during the IT boom in India in the early 2000s and mid-2000s. So because of the IT boom in India, many people grew faster than they should have. They got promoted probably every year as compared to every 2 or 3 years, which normally happens. What happened as a result of that is, though they reached higher positions in terms of designations and roles, their capabilities in terms of leadership or people management had stagnated. They had never really invested on that. And therefore, the result of which is something that you're able to see now. The only people who are able to make this leap, crossing the chasm now, are people who are able to take teams along with them, who are not just the value add of a senior manager is not about being great in Java or .NET. The value add of a senior manager is about getting work done from his account or his team, right? And this is what is happening in every industry, right? Now, in any task that you do, whether you be an individual contributor or whether you have 40 people reporting under you, whether you're a cricket team captain or whether you're a public speaker, there is a time in your career where you cannot be an island and be successful. You have to deal with multiple stakeholders. You will have to lead a team. Even if you are a technical expert, there will be a point when you become an architect and you will have junior architects reporting to you, and which again makes you a manager. So being a leader is not a choice anymore, and therefore it's better to learn the skills of it earlier than later in all our careers.
That is very insightful to know. We cannot escape leadership if we have to have a growth in our career, which is someday or the other we'll have a promotion. It might come sooner, it might come later, but we will have to step into the shoes of being a leader and manage our stakeholders well. A lot of learning out here, sir, from you. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and your anecdotes on leadership.
Thank you, Deepika. Pleasure.
Pleasure, sir. Thank you.